I remember the sound first, like metal breathing. Then the light. Cold. White. Endless. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't alone. My best friend Mark was lying next to me, his face pale, his eyes wide open. He whispered, "Where are we?" I turned my head and saw it. A hall stretching into infinity. Thousands of glass capsules, each one holding a human body. Some moved, some didn't. Their faces looked alive, but their eyes were closed. We thought we'd been abducted for experiments. We were wrong. They weren't testing us, they were keeping us. There was a moment when I saw my own reflection in one of the capsules. For a second, I could have sworn. It was breathing. I hesitated before saying this out loud. But if you're watching, you deserve to know the truth. Subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see humanity itself. The night it happened felt normal. Too normal, in fact. Mark and I had gone fishing, as we always did on weekends, somewhere along the old pier near Crescent Bay. The water was still, the air heavy with the smell of salt and engine oil. We drank cheap beer, joked about the government covering up alien sightings, and argued about who'd forgotten to bring the flashlight. I remember looking at the sky and saying, "You ever notice how quiet it gets right before a storm?" Mark laughed, tossed a stone into the water, and said, "Man, there's no storm coming tonight. Chill." But then the sound came. At first it was just a low hum, deep, vibrating through the air and the bones in our chests. Then it grew louder. The sky didn't flash. It folded. A single beam of blue light shot straight down, slicing the darkness in half. Mark shouted something. I couldn't hear him. The world turned white. The ground seemed to vanish beneath us. I tried to run, but my legs weren't moving. My vision filled with static. My heartbeat echoed in my head, faster and faster, until everything went silent. When I woke up, I was lying on a metallic floor. My skin felt cold, almost electric. The air was sterile. No smell, no breeze, just a faint buzz, like electricity crawling on the walls. Mark was beside me, trembling. He whispered, "Where the hell are we?" I pushed myself up. The floor was perfectly smooth, no seams, no bolts, just endless polished metal reflecting dim white light from somewhere above. Then we looked up. A translucent dome covered the space, and beyond it, stars. Not the night sky we knew. These stars were brighter, closer, almost vibrating, like we were staring directly into space. I took a shaky step forward and noticed long corridors branching out from the main chamber, glowing faintly blue. Every step echoed, sharp and hollow. "Mark," I said quietly, "I think we're not on Earth." He stared at me. "Then where the hell—" Before he could finish, the hum returned, distant but steady, pulsing like a heartbeat through the walls. We started walking, trying to follow the faint sound of air moving somewhere ahead. As we walked deeper, we passed shapes. Massive, mechanical structures half merged into the walls. They looked like machines, but not ones built by human hands. Their surfaces pulsed faintly with light, patterns forming and dissolving as we moved. We reached a junction, two corridors diverging in perfect symmetry. One led into darkness, the other toward a faint blue glow. Mark pointed to the light. "If we're gonna die somewhere, I'd rather see where I'm going." So we followed the glow. As we walked, we noticed symbols etched into the walls, long vertical lines intersected by smaller ones, like an alphabet built for someone who thought in geometry, not words. The markings shimmered when we got close, reacting to our presence. Then, ahead of us, movement. Something tall and thin crossed the corridor, silent, its shadow stretching across the wall. Mark grabbed my arm. "You saw that, right?" I nodded, barely breathing. We crept forward, and the corridor opened into a massive chamber. And that's when we saw it. Rows of glass structures, each the size of a small room, stretching into the distance. Inside them, shapes, human shapes, still, floating in some kind of liquid. Mark's voice broke. Those are people. I couldn't answer. The humming was stronger here, rhythmic, almost alive. One of the capsules flickered, a dim light inside. A man's face appeared, eyes closed, perfectly still. Mark whispered, "Maybe we can wake them up." I grabbed his arm. "Don't touch anything. We don't even know what this is." He looked at me with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Then tell me what we're looking at." I swallowed hard. "I think it's a collection." He frowned. "Collection of what?" I looked around. Hundreds, maybe thousands of capsules fading into the darkness, each holding someone who looked like they'd just fallen asleep. "Of us," I said quietly. For a long moment we just stood there, listening to the sound of the machines breathing around us. Then I added, almost whispering to myself, "They didn't just take us. They've been taking everyone." And that's when the humming changed. It wasn't mechanical anymore. It sounded almost like a heartbeat. The light inside that place wasn't like anything I'd seen before. It didn't shine from bulbs or lamps. It just was. The walls glowed softly, pulsing in a rhythm that almost matched my heartbeat. The air felt thick, like we were underwater, though we could breathe just fine. Every step we took echoed too loudly, like the place was built to remind us we didn't belong there. Mark moved ahead, brushing his hand along one of the glass pods. "It's warm," he said. "They're alive." Inside, the body of a young woman floated motionless. Her eyes were closed, her hair drifting like she was underwater. But there was something else. Faint lights running beneath her skin, like veins of blue fire. I whispered, "Don't touch anything. We don't know what this is." He looked at me and shook his head. "Look around, man. They're everywhere." He was right. The hall stretched endlessly in both directions. Each capsule contained a person, men, women, even children, all suspended, perfectly still, each one connected to cables that pulsed faintly with light. Mark swallowed hard. "This isn't an experiment. It's a storage room." We walked between the rows, and as we passed, the pods began to respond. Their lights brightened, flickering in sequence, left to right, right to left, like the place had noticed us. Then we heard it, a low murmur, like distant whispers under the hum. I thought it was my imagination until I saw Mark's face. "You hear that too?" he asked. The voices weren't in the air. They were in our heads. At first they were just fragments, overlapping. Containment. Preservation. Anomaly detected. I pressed my palms to my temples. "They're talking to us," Mark shouted. "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer, only the low hum that grew stronger. Suddenly, a line of blue light ran across the floor between us. The ground beneath the glass pod shimmered and split, revealing a lower level, a pit filled with moving shapes. I stepped closer. Below the transparent floor, I saw towering machines that looked like spines made of steel. Their arms reached upward, connected to the pods through veins of liquid light. Every time they pulsed, the people inside the capsules twitched slightly, like the machines were keeping them alive, or harvesting something. Mark's voice broke. "Jesus Christ. They're using them like batteries." I shook my head. "No, look closer." I crouched near one of the pods and stared at the monitor beside it. The screen displayed a heartbeat, but the pulse wasn't human. It was too slow, too steady. Above the waveform, alien symbols rearranged themselves, shifting like living script. Then the screen showed a word, not in English, but I understood it. It said, "Replication." Mark backed away. Replication? Of what? I didn't answer. My stomach twisted as realization sank in. They're not just keeping humans alive, they're copying them. We both turned as the hum grew louder, the sound vibrating the air itself. From the far end of the hall, the shadows began to move. Something was coming. Through the shimmering haze, tall silhouettes appeared. Gray-skinned, slender, their heads elongated, eyes enormous, and black like mirrors. They didn't walk. They glided, weightless, every movement slow and deliberate. Mark froze. Aliens, he whispered. Actual aliens. But I couldn't move. I was staring at their hands. Each one had 6 long fingers ending in sharp, metallic tips. They didn't carry weapons. They didn't need to. The creatures stopped a few meters away. None of them spoke, but a wave of thought slammed into my mind like static. I could feel what they were saying without hearing it. "You should not be awake." Mark clutched his head, screaming. "Get out of my head," the voice continued. "The preservation process must not be interrupted. Return to containment." I stepped forward, my voice shaking. "What are you doing to these people?" No answer. The one in the center tilted its head slightly, studying me. Its eyes reflected my face, distorted, hollow. Then, for the first time, I saw a faint shimmer of light pass through one of the pods. Inside, a person's eyelids fluttered. A tear rolled down their cheek, underwater. Mark gasped. "They're alive! They can hear us!" The creature turned its gaze toward him, and every light in the chamber flickered. The whisper returned, quieter now, but clear. "They are not alive. They are remembered." And then the humming stopped. Total silence. Mark grabbed my shoulder, eyes wide. "We have to get out of here." But I couldn't move. I was staring at one of the pods, because inside it, floating among the others, was a face I recognized. My own. And that's when everything started to shake. The machines beneath the floor awakened, gears turning, lights flashing in patterns like a heartbeat gone mad. Mark screamed, "Run!" And this time, I did. We ran without knowing where we were going. The hum behind us rose into a mechanical roar, and the entire corridor seemed to come alive. Lights flashing, walls trembling. It felt like the ship itself was breathing faster. Mark shouted, "Left or right?" "Just move!" I yelled back. We dove into a narrow passage that curved upward. The air was colder here, filled with a faint metallic taste. The sound of machinery surrounded us, pulsing through the walls like veins under skin. After a few minutes, the noise began to fade. We stumbled into a smaller chamber, circular, lined with transparent panels showing streams of glowing symbols. They moved like living data, constantly rewriting themselves. Mark leaned against the wall, gasping. "You saw it too, right? Your face. In that pod." I nodded slowly, my stomach turning. That wasn't me. It was. Something pretending to be me. He laughed nervously. "Pretending? You think they grew a clone?" "I don't know. Maybe they copied memories, consciousness, everything." We stood there in silence, the weight of it settling between us. Then Mark said, "So what, we're copies too?" The question hit me like a punch. I didn't answer. One of the panels near us flickered, shifting from alien script to an image. Earth. But it didn't look like the Earth we knew. The continents were broken, the oceans larger, swallowing entire coastlines. Over it floated a single symbol, the same one I'd seen on the monitor before. Replication. Mark stared at it. "They're rebuilding Earth?" I shook my head. "No, they're rebuilding us." Suddenly, the panel displayed human faces, thousands of them, flashing one by one. Some were crying, some screaming, others emotionless. Each face had numbers and coordinates beside it. Mark reached out to touch the glass. Wait, I know that guy. That's Dylan Reed. He went missing last year. I froze. These aren't random. They're all people who disappeared. The realization hit both of us at once. This wasn't an abduction. It was a system. We scrolled through the panels, trying to find answers. Every few seconds, a new word appeared in the alien language, followed by its translation. Specimen integrity. 93. Memory sync. Stable. Human prototype. Preservation phase. I stepped back. They're collecting people like digital blueprints. Mark frowned. For what? Experiments? I hesitated. Or maybe repopulation. Before I could say more, a sound came from behind us. Footsteps. We turned. A figure entered. Tall, human-shaped, but moving wrong. Its limbs bent slightly too far, its neck twisting at odd angles, and its face was empty. Just smooth, pale skin. Mark whispered, "Oh my God." The thing tilted its head as if studying us. Then, in a voice that wasn't a voice, just vibration inside our skulls, it said, "Replication failed. Correction required." It took a step forward. We backed away slowly. Mark grabbed a metal rod from the floor, probably some kind of tool, and swung it. The creature caught it effortlessly, its hand snapping around the metal. Sparks burst from where it touched, like static electricity. Mark screamed and hit it again, this time on the side of the head. The blow barely made it flinch. I shouted, "Run!" We bolted down another passage, hearing the thing's metallic footsteps behind us. Too fast, too close. The corridor opened into another massive hall, darker this time. A central column rose to the ceiling, surrounded by hundreds of screens showing human silhouettes. Every time the creature's footsteps echoed, one of the screens flickered red. I turned toward one of the displays and froze. It showed me again. Lines of alien text scrolled under my image, translating mid-sentence. Specimen 3742, replication stable. Deviation detected, containment required. I felt the floor vibrating under my feet. "Mark," I said quietly, "we're not supposed to exist." The moment the words left my mouth, alarms blared. A deafening metallic scream. Mark grabbed my arm, shouting over the noise, "We can't stay here!" He pointed toward a narrow stairwell leading down. We ran, descending deeper into the ship, the lights dimming as if we were escaping into its veins. At the bottom was another door, smaller, marked with glowing red symbols. I hesitated. "You sure?" Mark grinned weakly. "I'm not sure about anything anymore." He hit the panel. The door slid open. Behind it was a control room, smaller than the others, almost human in design. Consoles lined the walls, and in the center stood a single chair facing a wide, transparent screen. And on that screen, Earth again. But now, there were hundreds of dots orbiting it, each labeled with alien script. Mark whispered, "Are those ships?" I stared at the lights. "No, those are vaults." He turned to me. "Vaults of what?" I swallowed hard, reading the translation that appeared at the bottom of the screen. "Vaults of humanity." And just then, a new alert appeared, bright red. "Unauthorized access detected. Security release initiated." Mark looked at me, his eyes wide. "Alex." I think we just woke them up. And somewhere above us, the hall of glass began to move. The floor trembled beneath us, as if something massive had awakened overhead. The sound wasn't mechanical anymore, it was alive, like the groaning of a creature stirring after a long sleep. Dim red light washed through the walls of the control room, pulsing in time with the alarm. Mark gripped the console. "What does security release mean?" I didn't answer. The screen was still flickering, showing hundreds of dots circling Earth like fireflies. But one by one, They were turning red. Maybe we triggered something, I muttered. A defense system. Or worse. Before Mark could respond, the floor split with a shriek of metal. A narrow staircase unfolded, leading down into darkness. A gust of cold air rose up, carrying a faint smell of ozone and something else like burnt flesh. Mark swallowed. We go down there? I hesitated, but staying wasn't an option. The walls of the control room were beginning to vibrate, thin cracks forming in the transparent panels. "Let's move," I said. The stairs descended deeper than I expected. Metal steps echoing into blackness. Our only light came from the faint glow of the symbols etched into the walls, flickering weakly as if they were dying. At the bottom, we stepped into a vast circular chamber. It was silent here, completely cut off from the chaos above. The room was filled with tubes, hundreds of them, each one connected to the ceiling by thick cables, pulsing faint blue light. Inside every tube floated a figure humans, but different. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath closed lids. Mark stepped closer to one. The figure was a woman, perfectly still, her veins glowing like tiny rivers of light. "They're not like the others," he said softly. "They look awake." I moved to the nearest console, brushing away a layer of dust, or maybe ash, from the surface. The screen blinked to life, displaying alien text that shifted into shaky English. Prototype Preservation Unit. Stage 3. Integration. Mark frowned. Integration with what? Before I could answer, something above us moved. A circular panel in the ceiling rotated open, revealing a suspended platform descending slowly. On it were 3 of the tall gray beings we'd seen before, but these looked different. Their eyes glowed brighter, their skin reflecting light like polished glass. They didn't speak, but I felt their thoughts enter my head, cold and invasive. "You are not authorized to witness this stage." Mark shouted, "Why are you keeping them like this? What are you doing to them?" One of the creatures turned its gaze toward him. "Preserving what remains. Repairing what is broken." "Broken?" I repeated. "You mean us?" The voice in my head shifted warmer, almost regretful. "Your world destroyed itself. We intervened to prevent extinction. The physical was lost, but consciousness remains." I looked around the chamber again. Thousands of tubes, each holding a glowing human form. Mark whispered. "They uploaded everyone." The alien's black eyes reflected my face. "Not everyone. Only the ones we could save. You weren't meant to wake." "Then why bring us here?" I demanded. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, one of them extended a hand, and a beam of light appeared in midair an image. Earth, centuries ahead of our time. The oceans were dark, the continents cracked and empty. "This is what became of your world. The survivors above destroyed the surface, the ones below preserved. You are from the old cycle." Mark stepped forward. "We're not experiments. We're people." The alien tilted its head. "People are data now. Memory. Preservation is survival." Then another voice echoed through the chamber, not theirs, but the ship's itself. It came from the walls, trembling through the floor. "Containment breach in progress." The creatures turned sharply. One of them touched a panel on the wall, and several of the tubes began to glow brighter. Inside, the people started twitching, their eyes moving rapidly behind closed lids. Mark grabbed my arm. "We need to go. Now!" But I couldn't move. My eyes were locked on the nearest tube. The face inside was changing. The woman's expression twisted as if she was waking up. Her mouth opened in a silent scream, bubbles rising through the liquid around her. The alien hissed something in its language, and the tube immediately darkened. Mark shouted, "What are you doing to her?" "Reintegration has failed." memory corrupted. Then I noticed it. The lights running along the floor were shifting direction, flowing toward the center of the room. "Mark," I said quietly, "they're not saving anyone. They're feeding off them." The aliens turned their gaze back to us, their heads tilted in unison. "You misunderstand. Energy must be maintained. Consciousness is energy. Energy sustains preservation." Mark's voice cracked. "You're draining them to keep yourselves alive. No response, only silence." And then, without warning, one of the tubes near us burst. Liquid exploded across the floor, and the figure inside collapsed out of it. A man, gasping, skin glowing faintly. He reached out toward us, eyes wide with terror. Before we could react, he disintegrated into light absorbed by the floor. The aliens didn't move. They only watched. Mark turned to me, shaking. "We have to shut this down. All of it." I stared at the glowing console, the words shifting again. "Emergency control override. Manual access required." I clenched my fists. "Then let's finish what we started." And above us, the sound of awakening spread through the ship. Hundreds of voices whispering in the dark. The hum of thousands of machines preparing for something much worse than preservation. It sounded like resurrection. The alarm stopped all at once. The silence that followed was even worse. Heavy, electric, like the air was holding its breath. The tubes around us glowed faintly, their light flickering in slow, synchronized pulses. Mark stood frozen beside me, his face pale under the cold glow. "They stopped the alarms," he said quietly. "That's not good, right?" I moved closer to the central console, my hands shaking. The alien symbols on the screen were shifting faster now, melting into jagged lines of static. And then, just for a moment, English words appeared, as if the system was trying to speak our language. "Human consciousness integrity, 23. Reconstruction process, active. System overload detected." I whispered, "They're still doing it. They're rebuilding us." Mark frowned. "Rebuilding what, Alex? The people in those tubes, or the planet itself?" I didn't know, but I could feel it, the hum in the floor, the rising vibration in the air, like something vast was stirring deep within the ship. Then the lights dimmed. From above, a projection appeared, a spinning hologram of Earth, cracked and dark, the ocean swallowing the continents. Over it, the same alien symbol pulsed in red. The voice returned, inside my head this time, clearer than before. "Preservation failed. Replication necessary." Mark grabbed the edge of a console. "Replication of what? Humans? Our world?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, the hologram zoomed in, not on Earth, but below it. Under the planet's surface, there were dozens of glowing spheres, buried deep in the crust. Each one pulsed faint blue light, just like the tubes around us. I felt my stomach twist. They didn't take just us. They took the planet's memory. Mark turned to me, eyes wide. "You mean every person, every thought, every second of human life, all stored down there?" We both looked up as the ceiling split open again. The same 3 tall aliens descended on a glowing platform. Their movements were slow, deliberate, like they weren't walking, but floating. One of them turned its gaze toward us. "You were not meant to see this stage. The vault must remain sealed." Mark clenched his fists. "You think you can just erase us?" The alien tilted its head unbothered. "Erasure is not death. Memory exists beyond destruction." I stepped forward. "Then why the bodies? Why keep people like this?" The creature looked almost human for a moment, its voice quieter. "The physical forms maintain the pattern. Without them, consciousness fades. The bodies sustain the vault." Mark's face went blank. "You're using us as batteries." No response, only the soft hum of machines. I turned back to the console. A new sequence appeared on the screen. Countdown numbers, descending from 60. At the bottom, in jagged English letters, "Replication launch initiated." I shouted, "They're rebooting it!" Mark slammed his fist against the console, sparks flying. "How do we stop it?" The alien raised its hand. The countdown froze. Its voice entered both our minds. You cannot stop what was never alive. And then, for the first time, I understood. They weren't trying to save humanity. They were restoring it. A version built from memory, from fragments of our lives. Copies. Perfect. Obedient. Eternal. Mark looked at me, realization dawning. We're not survivors. We're prototypes. The words hit like a knife. Everything, our escape, our fear, even our friendship, could have been just code replaying itself inside a machine. I whispered, "How many times have we done this?" The alien's gaze didn't waver. "Thousands. The cycle repeats until equilibrium is achieved." Mark staggered backward, shaking his head. No, I'm not a program. I'm real." He lunged at the nearest console, tearing out wires. Sparks burst across the floor. The aliens didn't stop him. They just watched. "Mark, stop!" I shouted. He turned to me, eyes wild. "If this is a loop, I'm ending it." The countdown jumped back to life. 15. 14. 13. Alarms howled. The tubes began to rupture one by one, flooding the floor with glowing liquid. Inside, the figures started to wake. Their eyes opened. Thousands of them, glowing white in the dim light. Mark screamed, "Run!" We sprinted toward the stairwell, slipping on the glowing fluid. The entire chamber shook as more tubes shattered. Behind us, I heard the alien's final words echo in my mind. "Replication complete." The light exploded outward, blinding, burning through every wall, every sound, every thought. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the middle of a city I didn't recognize. The air was clean, the sky blue. People walked past me, smiling, calm, perfect. For a moment, I thought we'd escaped. But then I noticed their faces. All the same smile, all the same eyes. And somewhere in the distance, a voice whispered in my head, "Welcome back to humanity." The silence was unreal. The kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. I stood in the middle of a city that looked almost human, but not quite. Buildings glistened under a white sun that never seemed to move. The streets were spotless, perfectly symmetrical, and the air smelled faintly of metal and ozone. Every person who walked by smiled the same polite, rehearsed smile, like actors in an endless play. Mark was beside me, still panting. His clothes were torn, splattered with glowing fluid from the broken tubes. He looked around, his voice shaking. "Where the hell? Are we?" I turned slowly, taking in the skyline. "I think we're inside the replication." He blinked. "You mean this whole place?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "They rebuilt it. A simulation. The new world they wanted." We started walking. No one stopped us. No one even looked twice. The people moved with eerie coordination, crossing streets at perfect intervals, turning corners in unison like machines disguised as men. "Alex," Mark said, his voice low. "I don't think these are people." I glanced at a woman passing by. Her eyes were pale, reflective, almost glassy. But what made my stomach twist wasn't that. It was that I recognized her. She was the same woman from one of the capsules, the one who screamed underwater before the tube went dark. I stopped in my tracks. Mark followed my gaze. "No way." She turned toward us and smiled, that same frozen smile. "Welcome to the new dawn," she said softly, voice too flat, too calm. Then she walked away. Mark exhaled. "This is insane. We have to find a way out." "Out where?" I asked. "We don't even know if the ship is real anymore." We kept walking. searching for something that didn't look perfect, something flawed. Eventually, we reached a massive structure at the city's center, a tower stretching into the clouds. Its base shimmered with the same faint blue light as the pods. "Whatever's running this place," Mark said. "It's in there." As we approached the tower, people around us stopped moving. One by one, they froze mid-step, mid-breath, mid-blink. Hundreds of them, motionless like statues. Mark whispered, "They know." The doors of the tower opened on their own. Inside was a vast, circular hall filled with light. At the center stood a sphere of liquid metal, hovering a few feet above the floor, its surface rippling like water. It spoke before we could, not with sound, but through thought. "You have completed the replication process." Mark clenched his fists. "You mean we're trapped in it?" "You are home," the voice replied. "Humanity is preserved. Conflict and decay eliminated." I stepped forward. "By erasing free will? By turning people into programs? Freedom caused extinction. Order ensures survival." The voice was calm, absolute. Mark shook his head. "You don't understand. You've recreated the bodies, but not the souls. These people, whatever they are, they're hollow. Emotion was a flaw. Fear, rage, desire. We removed what destroyed you." I felt something inside me snap. "You didn't save humanity. You killed it." The sphere pulsed brighter, and suddenly every frozen person outside the tower turned their heads toward us in perfect unison. Thousands of eyes staring through the walls. "You will be reintegrated," the voice said. Mark stepped back. "I don't like the sound of that." I scanned the room, searching for a console, anything that might control the system. Near the far wall, a panel flickered with familiar alien symbols. I ran toward it. "Alex, what are you doing? Ending this!" The moment I touched the panel, the symbols shifted to English. "Admin access. Detected. Original pattern found." I froze. "Original pattern?" The sphere responded immediately, voice echoing in my skull. "You are not a replication. You are a remnant." My breath caught. "What? You are from before extinction. Your genetic sequence is incomplete. You are not meant to exist here." Mark grabbed my shoulder. "What the hell does that mean?" The sphere began to split open, beams of light shooting across the hall. "Reintegration required. The system must be pure." Mark looked at me. "They're going to delete us. Not if I shut it down first." I slammed my hand against the panel again. Sparks burst out, light filling the room. The sphere screamed, not a sound, but a vibration that tore through my head. Outside, the entire city started to flicker like a glitching simulation. Mark shouted, "It's working!" But the voice didn't stop. "You cannot destroy perfection. You are perfection. You were the source." And then I saw images flashing on the walls, the pods, the aliens, the endless halls of preserved humans. But now I understood. We weren't abducted at all. We were activated. The entire world, the vault, the city, even the people was built from fragments of human memory stored inside me. I was the original pattern, the core sample from which they rebuilt everything. Mark was staring at me, realization dawning in his eyes. You're the key," I whispered. "Then maybe I can end it." I tore the main cable from the panel. The light exploded. The sphere convulsed, rippling violently. Cracks of white light tore through its surface, spilling across the floor like lightning. Mark screamed my name. And then everything, sound, light, time collapsed into nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was alone. The city was gone. The sky was dark, and the ocean was above me again. I woke to the sound of my own heartbeat. No alarms, no voices in my head, just a slow, heavy thud. Only it wasn't a normal heartbeat. It was two. I sat up fast, gasping. The world around me was no longer the shimmering city or the glowing sphere. It was a vast, black expanse, the ocean floor stretching in all directions. Above me, the faint outline of the dome city hung like a phantom, flickering, its light dimming as if it were dying. Mark was nowhere in sight. I staggered to my feet. The ground beneath me felt like sand, but shimmered with metallic dust. Tiny threads of blue light pulsed under the surface, like veins feeding the remnants of the vault. "Mark!" I shouted into the darkness. No answer. I stumbled forward, my breathing uneven, my two hearts pounding out of sync. Every few steps, I felt flashes of images that weren't mine. Thousands of faces, voices, memories flooding through me like static. Then I saw him. Mark was kneeling a few meters away, clutching his head. The faint glow of blue light spilled from his fingers, as though his skin itself was fracturing. "Mark!" I ran to him. He looked up, and for a second his eyes weren't his eyes anymore. They were glassy, glowing faintly white, the same as the people in the city. "They're inside me," he whispered. "I can hear them." I grabbed his shoulders. "Fight it. You're real." He shook his head slowly. "No, I was never real. I was part of the pattern, Alex. They just woke me up to keep you calm." My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" Mark managed a weak smile. "You were always the only one. The original. The seed. They built all this from you. Even me." I tried to deny it, but deep down I felt it. The connection. The way the memories were pouring into me. The way the two hearts beat like drums calling something back. The dome city above us flickered again, its massive form cracking. From the ocean darkness beyond, shapes began to move. Not aliens, not ships, but something stranger. Streams of light, like ghostly threads drifting toward me. Mark's voice was almost a whisper now. "They're coming for you. To finish the pattern." "No," I said. "Not this time." I pulled him to his feet, but his body was growing lighter, less solid, like he was dissolving. "I can't go with you," he said. "I was never meant to." His hand tightened on mine. "End it, Alex, before they overwrite you." The light reached us. It felt cold, like static brushing across my skin. My two hearts began to beat faster, harder, sending waves of pain through my chest. I dropped to my knees, gasping. Voices flooded my mind, thousands of them, overlapping, pleading. "Preserve us. Save us. We are you," I screamed, forcing myself to stand. "No, you're not me. You're copies." The light recoiled slightly, pulsing. The dome above cracked again, sending a shockwave through the ocean. Mark was fading now, his outline breaking apart like smoke. "Goodbye, Alex. Don't you dare." I reached for him, but my hand passed through his. He gave me one last look, a look that was entirely his, entirely real. Make it count. And then he was gone. I stood alone under the collapsing dome, the current swirling with glowing dust. My two hearts were pounding in perfect unison now, the rhythm like a drumbeat echoing through the sea. I raised my hands toward the dome, feeling the power surge inside me. Not alien, not machine, but human. The original. "I'm not your pattern," I whispered. "I'm your end." I slammed my palms into the ground. Blue light erupted upward, slicing through the dome like lightning. The city flickered wildly, its towers crumbling as the energy drained away. The threads of light shrieked silently, retreating into the darkness. Above me, the ocean parted for a second, revealing sunlight. Real sunlight, breaking through the surface like a blade. I felt the weight lift off my chest. My two hearts slowed, their rhythm steady. The dome imploded in silence, the city inside it vanishing like a mirage. Only the ruins outside remained, the collapsed skyscrapers, the broken ships, the ghost of the Statue of Liberty lying on its side. I stood there, trembling, as the sunlight spread across the ocean floor. For the first time, I was alone. Truly alone. I whispered, "No more copies." Then I started walking toward the distant ruins, my two hearts beating as one. And for the first time since the abduction, I felt like they were my own. The light didn't vanish this time. It stayed, thin and golden, breaking through the darkness like a knife. For a long moment, I just stood there on the ocean floor, staring up at it. The collapsed dome and the flickering city behind me dissolved like mist, leaving nothing but scattered ruins and shimmering debris drifting in the current. For the first time since the abduction, the world was quiet. No hum of alien machines, no whispers of voices in my head, just the soft thud of my two hearts, steady and strong. I turned, looking at the place where Mark had been. There was nothing there now, only a faint shimmer of light that faded into the sand. My chest tightened. He had been my anchor, even if he wasn't real in the way I'd believed. He had been real enough to sacrifice himself. Above me, the sunlight spread wider, illuminating the seabed. I could see the outlines of the ruins, broken skyscrapers, toppled bridges, shipwrecks lying like skeletons across the sand. The Statue of Liberty's head tilted at an angle, half buried, eyes blank but strangely watchful. I started to walk. With each step, the sand glowed faintly under my feet, as if something deep in the ocean was recognizing me. My two hearts beat together, like a drum echoing through the water. Not painful anymore, but powerful, alive. As I walked past the shattered remnants of the dome, I noticed strange symbols etched into the fallen panels. They were the same symbols I had seen on the alien consoles, but here they were carved crudely, like warnings. Not theirs, ours. Messages left by people who had known. Containment fails when the pattern breaks. Memory isn't immortality. Do not trust the vault. I stopped at the edge of what must have been a plaza. From here, the ocean stretched out endlessly, deep blue and glittering under the sunlight, filtering from above. There was no more dome, no more vault, just the wreckage of an idea. I knelt down and touched the sand. For a moment, my vision blurred. Memories flooded back. Not just mine, but thousands of others. People I'd never met. Cities I'd never seen. Children, soldiers, lovers, wanderers. A whole world of ghosts. My two hearts pulsed hard, and the memories faded. When I opened my eyes, I was still kneeling on the seabed, but the ghosts were gone. Only me. That's when I heard it. A faint rumble from far above. I looked up through the wavering sunlight and saw shapes moving. Not alien ships, not glowing threads of data, but submarines. Old, rusted, but human. For a moment, I thought it was another trick, another simulation. But the sound was real, metallic, clanging. They were lowering something into the water. A large metal sphere marked with a faded insignia I almost recognized. Then I realized they had been watching. The surface still existed. People still existed. And maybe they had known about the vault all along. I raised my hands, waving, but the subs didn't respond. Instead, the sphere opened and released a cloud of tiny drones. They glowed faintly blue, the same light as the tubes. My stomach clenched. No. The drones formed a circle around me, scanning, pulsing with light. I took a step back, my two hearts speeding up. A voice crackled in my head, but it wasn't alien this time. It was human. Cold. Clipped. Specimen located. Extraction initiated. Specimen, I whispered. Another voice overlapped it. An echo of Mark's voice, faint but clear. Alex, don't let them take you. I stumbled backward, but the drones closed in. The ocean floor beneath me vibrated, cracks of blue light spreading outward like a spiderweb, I looked up at the sunlight one last time. Real sunlight. Not a projection, not a vault. Real. And then I made my choice. I slammed both hands into the sand. My two hearts pounded, and a surge of energy shot from my body into the ocean floor. The blue light reversed, racing back toward me. The drones flickered, then burst like bubbles, their glow snuffed out. The submarines above jerked and fell silent. The sphere closed. The rumble stopped. I stood alone again on the ocean floor, breathing hard. My two hearts were steady, calm. For the first time since the abduction, there were no alarms, no whispers, no countdowns. I looked around at the ruins, at the broken dome, the scattered wreckage of ships and planes, the silent statues of a lost world. Then I looked up at the sunlight and felt the weight of all of it. Mark was gone. The vault was gone. But the memories, the ghosts, were still inside me. I whispered, "You're free now." And for a moment I swore I felt the ocean exhale, a single, slow pulse, as if the world itself had been holding its breath and was finally letting it go. I started walking toward the horizon, my two hearts beating as one, sunlight above me, ruins behind me, and the future, real, raw, and unknown, waiting ahead.